Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this session, I'll just show you how you can design and develop one small Android game from scratch. Now this session is going to be a very interesting session. The reason is throughout this session you will get lot many things to learn, lot many things to understand, and at the end of this session you will end up with creating one small Android game on your own. Now before directly jumping into the code, I'll just try to show you some demo so that you can understand what is the application that we are going to create throughout this session, and you can just decide whether this particular session is helpful to you or not. Now let me just start the application on my virtual device so that I can give you some demo. Now this is going to be a very first splash screen, and this is going to be a game where you have to guess the color which is written. So for example green, so you have to guess the color, something like this. If at all you give a wrong answer, then you will end up with this particular game and you will be able to see your score. If you just want, you will be able to start the game again. Also we have a timer over here of 5 seconds, so we have to answer the question within the 5 seconds, or else again we will end up we will end up with the game. Now over here at very first look, it might look the small game. So yes, it is a small game, but it is kind of interesting game. So as of now, if you just see, then we have the text color over here. So if you just see, we have written green over here, and maybe let's suppose if I start it again. So let me just choose. Now if you just see, in this case we have random text and color combination. So if you just see, the color written is blue but the actual text color is red. So this becomes confusing, and this makes this game interesting, right? So every single thing that we are going to write over here or maybe see over here, I'll just show you how you can develop every single theme. Again, I'll just show you some cosmetic changes also which are required while implementing Android application. For example, how to set this logo or app icon. Then if you just see, there are some status bar, right? So we have to change, if you just want to change color of this status bar, then how you can change the color. Alongside, let's suppose if I just rotate this application, so as of now I have restricted um, this application to be only run on a portrait mode, so that is the reason we are not be able to rotate the application. So I'll just show you like how you can add some constraint, like because I just wanted to play this particular game in only in a portrait mode, so we have to restrict it, right? So I'll just show you how you can restrict this particular also, like all the cosmetic changes also I'll just show you how you can implement. So let's see how we can develop this particular game, and I'm sure at the end of this session you will get some knowledge over the Android development, and you will also end up with creating a small game on your own. So let's see how to implement this particular game. So now let's create a new project in Android Studio. If you are using IntelliJ, that is also fine. You can go ahead and create a new project in IntelliJ. So let me just click on new project, then let me just select no activity because we are going to write every single thing from scratch. Application name will be, let's suppose, color brain training. Then the package name will be com.youtube.colorbrain training. That is fine, we can go ahead with it. I will just keep save location as it is. Language should be the Java, and the minimum SDK should be the 24. So the reason why I'm using this Nougat Android 7.0 is many of the people might watching this series having older Android Studio version. That is the reason I'm just choosing the minimum SDK bit older. And then the next reason is, if we create the application with this API 24 label, then it will run approximately on 96% of the devices. That is the reason we are choosing this particular version. If you just want, you can just go ahead and choose other version. So you can just go ahead with it. And build configuration should be the build.gradle. So let me just choose it and let me just click on finish. Now one thing you have to just make sure, whenever you will create a new project, make sure you are connected to the internet, because when we create a new project in Android Studio, it basically tries to download some dependency over the internet. That is the reason we have to just make sure it. Otherwise, we might end up with getting some errors in the project. Now project is created successfully, The next thing that we can just do is we can just go in the left hand side section, we can just go inside the app Java, and as of now we don't have any activity, so we have to create our very first activity so that we can start writing some code. Now if I just show you the designs that I have already created, if I just go to this particular editor, I have a couple of files. So this is going to be a logo for our application. This is going to be a screen first, so that it will be act as a splash screen. It will appear maybe for 2 or 3 seconds, and after that we will jump to the screen 2, and on the screen 2 we will be having the actual game. As you can see, this is going this is how it is going to look like. We will be having some text views, then we will be having progress bar. It will act as basically a timer, and then we have couple of buttons. As you can see, we have couple of color buttons over here, and at the end we have screen 3 where we will be able to see the score in this way. So firstly we are going to work on this screen 1, or we can say that splash screen. So if I just go back to the Android Studio, over here what we have to do, we have to right click on Java package, on Java, not on Java, on com.youtube.color brand training, then new, and then we have to go to the activity and we have to select this empty view activity. Now over here we can just give the name as splash activity, something like this. We have to generate a layout file, so we have to check this, and this is going to be a launcher activity, so we can just check this particular checkbox also. Source language will be the Java, everything we can keep it as it is, and let me just click on finish. Now again it will just try to sync the project, and it will just create the new activity. Now once the activity is created, one thing that we can just make sure is we can just try to run this particular application on our virtual device. So the reason that we are going to run this is because we just have to make sure that whatever we have created till now, it is running successfully on the application, so that if at all we have any errors or some issues with the project, then we can like tackle those issues in a very initial stage. Now as you can see in the right hand side section, the application is running successfully on the devices, so it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that we have to do is like if I just see on the virtual device, as of now it is looking into the like kind of dark theme. So what I can just do, I can just first of all choose light theme on my device. So if I just go to the settings, and if I just go to the displays, and if I just choose a light theme, so because we are going to focus on light theme as of now, so let me just rerun the application. Let's see what happens, whether we are able to see it in a light theme or not. So yes, we are able to see it in a light theme. The next thing that we have to do is we have to remove this particular like action bar. So I don't want this action bar, so we have to remove it from the application. So in order to remove it, we have to go to this res, then we have to go to these values, and then we have two files over here, theme.xml and theme.xml night. So what we have to do, we have to go to this theme.xml file, and over here on line number 3 we have to select no action bar, something like this. So parent will be like theme.material component dot day night dot no action bar, and same thing we have to do with our themes .xml, the second file that we have. So we have to choose no action bar over here. Now let me just save all these files and let me just restart the application. Let's see what happens. Now this time I am expecting it should not show any action bar, and yes, we are not able to see any action bar over here. The next thing that we are going to do is we are going to design our splash screen. So as I have already shown you, this is the design of our splash screen. So let's see how we can write some code in order to design this particular screen. So now in order to write a code, let me just go back to the Android Studio, and over here what we have to do, we have to go to this, I'll just show you the location also. We have to go to this res, and then we have to go to this layout, and over here we will find one file that is called as activity underscore splash.xml. So this is going to be a file in order to write some design. So over here you will find three options. like we have the code, split, and design. So in a code you will be able to see the code section. If you just split, in the left hand side you will be able to see the code, and in the right hand side you will be able to see the design. And if you just select only design, then you will be able to see only design section over here. Now inside this design, if you just see what we can just do, we can just go to this component tree, and then if you just see, we have constraint layout over here. Inside this constraint layout we have to add one linear layout. So what we can just do, we can just add that linear layout by drag drop, by using some drag and drop functionality, and after that I'll just show you how to write the code also. So if I just search over here in the palette for linear layout, so linear layout, so we have two different options, horizontal and vertical. So we have to drag this vertical and we have to like drop it inside the component tree. Now constraint inside our constraint layout we have added this linear layout. Now if you just select this linear layout, and if you just go to the attributes, you will find different attributes over here. You can just assign all the attributes from this section, or you can just write a code also. So the attribute that as of now we are interested is this constraint widget. So we have to like click on this plus, plus, and plus, and plus, and we have to keep value as a 0. So it is basically means that in a constraint layout we have to um, we have to add all the objects, or maybe all the elements with the constraint of each other. So that is the reason we have to add these particular values. So there are four values basically: top, bottom, start, and end, and all these values should be the 0. Now if I just go back to this split section, this is how the code will look like as of now. So if you just see all these things, like orientation is vertical, width is equals to match parent, and height is equals to match parent. So when we say match parent, it is basically means that whatever available space that is there, it will take all the space. So width, it will like whatever available space it have for the width, and it will take all the space. And for height also, whatever available space it have, then it will take all that space as a height. So that is the reason we have these particular values. Orientation is vertical, and these are the main values that we have added from the attribute section. The next value that we have to add is, like, we have to add a background, right? So as we have already seen in the design, we have one background image, something like this. So we have to add this particular background. So I have already created this logo. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this particular logo, and I will just go inside the Android Studio. And don't need to worry about all these logos, everything that I'm using in this. I will give all the links into a description box, so you can just copy and paste it. And if I just go to the res, then drawable, we have to right click and we have to paste it inside the drawable. So now if I just paste it something like this, let me just copy it, and let me just go to the Android Studio again. Let me just right click and paste it. Now I'm not able to paste it, not sure why, what is happening. So what I will just do, I will just maybe go to the folder directly. So if I just go and maybe let me just copy this particular path. So let me just copy the path, let me just copy the absolute path, and let me just go to that particular path, and let me just paste it directly inside the folder. So let me just copy the file, and let me just paste it directly inside the folder, and I will just rename this particular file. So what I will just do, I'll just use logo instead of logo underscore one, something like this. Now if I just come back to the Android Studio, and if I just see, like, this particular file is added over here. The next thing that we have to do is we have to add this particular file as a background. So what we can just do, we can just go to this linear layout and we can just add background, and then we have to choose the file, which is drawable/logo, something like this. Now this is how it will look like. The next thing that we want is we want one text view so that we can add the text that we have seen inside the design. So we have to show the text like color colon brain training. So if I just go back to the Android Studio, we have to add one new text view inside the linear layout. Width I will just keep as match parent, and height I will keep it as a wrap content. So when we use a wrap content, it basically means that whichever space it requires, that space only it will just take. Rest of the space it will keep it as a for some other element. So that is the reason we have to use a wrap content. Then over here, text view is basically self-closing, so we can just use self-closing also, something like this. Now we have to add couple of more properties over here. The very first property that we have to add is a text. So what we have to do, we have to use text, and then we have to use color colon brain training, something like this. Now if you just see in the right hand side section, we are able to see the text something like this. One more thing that we can just do, instead of hard coding the value as it is over here, we can just move these particular values to the strings file. What we can just do, we can just copy this value and we can just go to the project, and then we can just go to the res, then values, and then we have one file that is called as a strings.xml. So what we can just do, we can just duplicate this particular line. Name we can just give it as splash underscore game underscore name, and value will be the value that we have just copied, something like this. And then what we can just do, instead of writing hard-coded value over here, we can just give @strings slash splash underscore game underscore name. So this is like, you can also hard code the value, not an issue, you will get the exact same output. But if you are using like Android Studio, and if you are creating project in Android Studio, this is the standard way you should use. So that is the reason I just shown you how you can just use the string files over here. The next thing that we want is we want alignment. So we want this text to be aligned at the center. So what we can just do, we can just assign one more property, text alignment at the center. The next thing that we just want is we just want text color. So we just have to give a text color, and we have to give it from @color slash white. Now if you just see, we have one more file that is called as a colors.xml. This basically comes like the default file when you create a project. Inside this you have already color having the name as a white, and this is the value of the white color also. So these particular some colors comes by default, so you can just use it as it is. The next thing that we just want is we just want a text size, and text size maybe I'll just give it as a 20 sp. Let's see how it looks. Maybe we can just increase it to the 30 sp. Yes, I think it looks perfectly fine. Then we can just give a text style also. We can just make it as a bold, something like this. The next thing that we just want is we want this text to be vertically centered at the screen. So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to go to the linear layout, and over here what we have to do, we have to use gravity, and gravity should be the center vertical, something like this. The next thing that we just want is we have some style for this text. So if I just show you to the design, then we have this particular border, as you can see into the picture, and we have some paddings also. So what we can just do, in order to create this particular border, we have to go to the project, and then inside this res drawable, we have to add a new drawable resource file. And over here we can just give the file name as maybe splash game underscore name, something like this, and let me just hit the enter. Now inside this particular file, again in the left hand side section we have to write a code, and in the right hand side section you will be able to see the output. So inside the selector, again this is going to be XML file, that is the reason we have to add some tags. So inside the selector we have to add item. Inside the item we have to add like shape, and that shape will be a rectangular shape, so we have to add a rectangle. And then what we have to do, we have to add like corners, because we just want some radius at the corner, right? So that is the reason we have to use corners. And over here the radius will be like, let's suppose 10 pixel. If you like, we can just assign the values as it is as of now, and if you just want, we can just increase or decrease those particular values. And then we have to assign a stroke, and for stroke we have to give a color, and color should be the white color. And we have to assign a width also. So for the width I will just use maybe 5 dp. Let's see. Yes, now I think this should work as expected. What we can just do, we can just see by applying this particular file in the right hand side section, you will be able to see the output. Not sure in the video how it is looking like, but if you are writing the code, you should be able to see some output at the right hand side section. Now let me just save it, and we can just try to apply this particular file, and if at all it looks good, then that's fine, or else we can change some values. Now for this text view, what we have to do, we have to like use one property that is called as a background. So we have to use background, and then we have to use @drawable, and then we can just use splash game name, something like this. Now it is looking perfectly fine, but we want some padding also. So for this padding, what we can just do, we can just use padding property, and we can assign padding of 20 dp. Yes, now it looks perfectly fine. We want some padding at the linear layout also, so we have to give padding, and over here let me just give it as a 5 dp. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. We can just try to assign maybe a 10 dp. Let's see. I think 10 dp is also looking perfectly fine, so we can just keep the value as a 10 dp. So you can just modify the values according to your need. No any issues, you can just like play around with it. Now our screen design is looking perfectly fine. One thing that we can just do now, we can just try to run the application on our virtual device, so that we can just make sure like everything that we have did till now, everything is looking perfectly fine. Now if you just see, let me just click on settings first, and let me just try to float it. Now if you just see, like we are able to see every single thing as expected, color, then text, and we have the borders also. So it is matching as perfectly fine with our design that we have created over here. The next thing that we have to do is we have to like make these as a splash screen. So this particular screen will appear maybe for 2 or 3 seconds, and after 2 3 seconds we have to like jump to the screen 2, right? So what we can just do, we can just go ahead in the Android Studio, and we can just create one new activity. So we have to go to the project, then Java, and we have to go to our package, then we have to add a new, then activity, and then we have to add empty view activity. This is going to be a like game activity, so let me just make it as a game activity. And this, like, we have to generate layout file, so make sure you have just checked this particular checkbox. This is not going to be a launcher activity, so we have to uncheck this, and every single thing we can keep it as it is. Let me just click on finish, and again let me just wait till the Gradle sync is done. Now the Gradle sync is done. The next thing that we can just do is we can just write some logic in order to like make our splash screen to appear only for 2 3 seconds. So what we can just do, we can just go inside our splash activity.java file. Inside this we have to write some logic. So in order to write logic, what we have to do, we have to create new object of a handler, and then we have to call a method that is called as a post delete. Now this post delete method basically takes like basically creates a new thread. So we have to use new runnable, and if you just see, we got the run method overridden, right? Inside the run method we have to write a logic. So we have to write intent is equals to new intent, and inside the intent we have to give a source and destination. So source and destination basically means that currently we are in the splash activity, So we have to give splash activity dot this, comma, we have to give destination activity. So destination activity will be like game activity dot class, something like this. And then we have to use start activity and we have to pass the intent. And lastly, we have to just use a finish, something like this. Now again, we have to pass the timeout also, like after which time we just want to execute this particular run method. So in order to do this, what we have to do, like when the run method ends, and when the runnable ends, actually after that we have to give a comma, and then we have to give, for example, if you just want to run this for 2 seconds, then you have to give 2000, because this value is basically in the milliseconds, right? So we have to give value as a 2 seconds, 2000, something like this. And now let me just save these changes. We can restart the application. Let's see whether it is working as expected or not. Now the application is launched on a virtual device, and if you just see, like it is, for 2 seconds we were able to see our splash screen, and thereafter we moved to the game activity, right? So this is working perfectly fine. Now the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to work on designing our second screen. So now in order to design a second screen, what we have to do, we have to go to this particular file, we have to go to this res, then layout, and then we have to go to this activity underscore game.xml layout. Now inside this, again we are able to see like we have constraint layout, so we have to add one linear layout over here. So let me just add a linear layout. Again we have two options, we have horizontal and vertical. So we are interested in the vertical, so we have to like drag and drop this linear layout inside our constraint layout, right? Now again we have to like select this constraint layout, and we have to add this constraint widget, like we have to add values. So we have to add plus, plus, plus and plus, like top, bottom, start and end. So every single value will be the plus, it will be the 0 itself. So we have to add those particular values. Now if I just show you in the code, we are able to see code something like this. The next thing that we can just do is we can just add one more linear layout over here. So why I'm adding one more linear layout? Because it will basically help us to like structurize our application, or maybe the design in a more correct way. So this is like just a convention that I basically follow. There might be some other scenarios where we can just follow some other conventions, but this is how the convention that I basically love to follow. So we have to add one linear layout over here, and then the width will be like match parent, and height will be like match parent again. So let me just choose height is a match parent. The next thing that we have to do is we have to add a orientation. So we have to add orientation vertical, something like this. Inside this we have to like we have to give some text views, because we just want to show our text also. So we have like we have to give two text views basically. So one to show this text like a blue, and then we have one note also that we just want to show. So we have to give this particular a text view for this particular note also. So let's give two different text views. So what I will just do, I'll just come over here inside the linear layout, I'll just assign a text view. Width will be match parent, and height will be a wrap content, and this is cell closing, so we can just give slash at the end, something like this. Inside the text view, we can first of all assign the text as of now, let's suppose blue. As of now I'm just going to hard code the values. In a moment we are going to change, and we are going to like add these values into our strings file. Text will be the blue, then text align will be the center. Then the next thing that we just want is we just want text style to be a bold. If you just want, you can just use a font family also, but I just want to go ahead with the uh, like the default font family that we have. One more property that I just would like to add is text all caps is equals to true. So why I'm using this particular property? because in some cases, if at all we assign um, values like in a small case, so but I just want to do I don't want to show it in a small case. So programmatically we are going to assign the values, and if at all any value is in a small case, it will automatically like make it in uppercase, and always it will show the value in a uppercase on this particular text view. That is the reason we are going to add this particular property. The next thing that we just want is we just want a text size. Let's suppose 48 dp 48 sp. So I think yes, this is looking perfectly fine, so we can go ahead with it. And we have to assign a text color also, so we have to use text color, and as of now maybe let's suppose a black color, something like this. So again, like these particular values that I have assigned, this text and this text color, all these values we have to assign programmatically, because this is the game, right? We want to change these text and text colors randomly, so we want to assign it programmatically. But as of now, just to create a design, just to see how the application will look like, I'm just going to assign this particular value. Otherwise you can just like we if we don't assign the value anyway, we are going to assign it programmatically. The next thing that we just want is we just want to assign one id also. So let me just use id, and let me just give it as a txt underscore question, something like this. The next thing that we just want is we just want one more text view. So let me just assign one more text view. Width will be a match, and height will be a wrap content, and then we have to assign text, and text will be like, let's suppose, choose the color which is written, something like this. And we just want alignment at the center, so we just use text align at the center. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. And one thing that we have just left back is we want every single thing inside our linear layout to be at the like vertically center. So what we have to do, we have to assign a value as like gravity, so we have to make it as a center. So there are two values over here that we have. So we have layout underscore gravity, and then we have one more value which is gravity. So we have to go ahead and we have to use gravity, and the value should be the center vertical. Now it will be like what central, it will be at the center vertically, right? The next thing that we just want is we just want some buttons at this particular area. So we want these particular buttons, and like so that we can just show some colors at the on top of these particular buttons. We also have this particular progress bar. So this particular progress bar will also act as a we will act as a like a timer. So we are going to add this particular progress bar also. So let me just first of all go to the Android Studio, and over here one thing that we can just do, we can just assign a progress bar. So assigning progress bar, again you can all these things that I'm writing with the code, you can just you can just use the design section, and you can just like maybe if you just search for a progress bar, then you will see the progress bar. Like there are two progress bars, one is like kind of a loading symbol or circular, and then second one is a horizontal. So I'm interested in the horizontal, so you can just directly drag and drop something like this, and if you just see, like we are able to see the progress bar something like this. So you can also do like drag and drop, or maybe you can just write a code. If you just see, like as soon as you dragged and dropped the progress bar in the code also, it got automatically added. So we can just go ahead with this also. Now what we have to do, we have to assign couple of styles to the progress bar also. So as of now, let me just do one thing. Let me just give the progress as 100, something like this. In a moment, like all these values that we are assigning over here, we have to assign it programmatically using Java. But the only thing that I just want to make sure is the design, how it looks like. So that is the reason I'm just going to assign a values. And then the next value that we just want to assign is like if you just see, as of now this particular progress bar is very near to our note that we have just added. So I just want some margin from the top. So for from margin from the top, maybe like 10 dp, something like this. And yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. One thing that we can just do is we can just maybe change this particular id to like progress underscore bar, something like this. And we can just keep style as it is. If I just control click on this, then there are multiple styles over here. You can just maybe if you just want, you can just play with the different styles. You can just copy these names and you can just paste it over here. So there are multiple styles. You can just apply any style that you want and you can just go ahead with those particular styles. But I'll just go with the default styles that I have. Then the next thing that we want is we want to use a grid layout, right? Because we want to show all these buttons, so we want to use a grid layout. So in order to use a grid layout, one thing that we have to do is we have to uh, first of all add a dependency for a grid layout, because the grid layout basically comes from a legacy. So we have to like add a dependency in order to use it. So how to add a dependency? We have to go to the design section and we can just search for maybe, let's suppose, grid. Yes, now if you just see in front of this grid layout, we have one option that is called as download. So we have to click on this download option and we have to click on OK, and it will just basically take some time to download the dependency and to install the dependency. Again, make sure you are connected to the internet, because every single thing that it does, basically it does it over the internet. So that is the reason, make sure you are connected to the internet. Now if I just go to the split and if I just go to the code section, what we can just do after this progress bar, we can just assign we can just like add a grid layout. So over here inside the grid layout, what we have to do, we have to give width as a wrap content and maybe height as a wrap content, something like this. And inside this grid layout, we have to add different buttons. Now before adding the button, two more important properties that we have to add is like row count and column count. Now if you just see, we have two rows and two columns, so we have to use row count as a 2 and column count as a 2. So if I just go back and if I just assign row count as a 2 and column count as a 2, something like this. And again, what we have to do, like we have to add buttons inside this grid layout. So again, what we have to do, like we have to use button, something like this, and we have to assign some properties for this particular button. So very first property that I would like to add is id, because id will be really very important for the button. So we have to add the id like button underscore red. So what I will just do, I will just, by like looking into the color, I will just assign the ids. So red, blue, green and yellow, this is the sequence. So I will just assign the ids in that sequence itself. So id will be the btn underscore red, width will be, let's suppose, 100 dp, or and height will be like, let's suppose, 100 dp. So this is how this particular button will look like. But I think what we can just do, we can just increase it little bit and we can just make it as a 180 dp, height and width both as a 180 dp. Yes, I think now it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that we have to do is we have to like assign the row and column value. So if I just show you like how the row and column value will look like. So the red button will be at the 0 0. So it will be at the, because row value starts from 0 and column value also starts from 0. So for red, the row value will be the 0 and column value will be the 0. For this blue, again the row value will be the 0, column value will be the 1. And for this green, the row value will be the 1 and column value will be the 0. So it is basically like kind of you can just see row starts from 0 and column also starts from 0. So you can just assign values in that particular way. Now if I just go back to the Android Studio, and for this button, if I just try to use row 0 and column also 0, something like this, Then we have to give some text also. So we have to give a text as, let's suppose, red, something like this, and we have to give a background color also for this particular button, right? So for this button, if you just want to add a background color, one thing that we can just do, we can just go inside our colors file, and inside the color file we can just add those colors. But before that, what I will just do, I will just copy this particular button code and I will just paste it again. And for this id, I'll just make it as blue, btn underscore blue. Height width, I will keep it as it is. Row value will be the 0, column value will be the 1, something like this. Again, I will just paste it. Then btn underscore green. Row value will be the 1, column value will be the 0. And again, what we can just do, we can just paste it and we can just make it as btn underscore yellow. Row value will be the 1 and column value will be the 1, something like this. Now it will look something like this. The one more property that we just want to add is, let me just remove this particular space. Yes, so one more property that we just want to add is, we just want some gap in between these, like all these buttons, right? So in order to add this particular gap, what we have to do, we have to, maybe we can just add some margins also. So what we can just do, for every single button we can just add some margin. So let me just add margin, and we can just give the value as a 5 dp, something like this. We can copy this particular style or property and we can paste it for every single button so that it will look quite consistent. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that we just want is, we just want every single thing centrally aligned, because now, as of now, if you just see it, it looks like it is aligned at the left hand side section. So we want it to be aligned at, like, at the center. So what we can just do, we can just go ahead and inside the grid layout we can just add one more property, which is, let's suppose, gravity, and we can just make it as a center. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. One more thing, if you just see, as of now we have added like text on this button, like every single for every single button we have added text as a red, because we have just copy pasted the code. So that is the reason it is like red. We have to change, like for the second button we have to make it as blue. Then for the third button we have to make it as green. For the fourth and last button we have to make it as a yellow, something like this. And now it is looking perfectly fine. We just have to assign a background color also for every single button. So what we can just do, first of all, if I just go to the project, then res values, inside the colors we can just add the colors that we just want to use. So let me just duplicate these particular lines 4 times, and over here the red color, then we have a blue color, and then we have a green, and lastly we have yellow also, something like this. And now if I just go back to my notes and if I just show you, like I have already used these particular values, color values. So what we can just do, we can just copy it. For the red we can just copy it and we can just paste these values. Then in a similar way we can just copy the value for blue. We can just come to the Android Studio and we can just paste this particular value. Then we have a value for a green, and lastly we have a value for yellow also. Maybe you can just pause it and you can just like you can just copy, and maybe you can just take a look to these color codes and you can just give those color codes in your file also. Now if I just come to the activity game.xml, the very first button, if I just go to the very first button, we have to add a background, maybe let's suppose at the red color slash red, something like this. And maybe as of now I'm not able to see that particular color, we can just assign this property like background tint, and we can just use color red. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. In a similar way, what we have to do, we have to assign the colors for all the different buttons that we have. So we can just copy it. For the blue, we have to assign color as a blue, something like this. For green, we have to assign a color as a green, and for yellow, we have to assign color as a yellow, something like this. And yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. One more thing that I just want is, I just want to hide this particular text on top of this button. The reason is, I just don't want to show the text, right? So if I just take you to the design, I don't want to show the text over here. I just want like clean button. So that is the reason what we have to do. We have to come back to the in Android Studio, and over here we have to add one more property like text color. And what we can just do, whatever color we have assigned to a button, the same color we can assign as a text color, something like this. So in that way, the text will be there on the button, but it will be like hidden text, right? So why we are using hidden text? The reason is, in a Java, when we will write some logic, when we will write some button clicks, in that way, in that button clicks, we are going to write one method, and inside that method we want to see like on which button we have clicked exactly. So all those things we are going to understand with the help of this text that we have added on the button. So that is the reason I'm not going to like remove this text. Instead, I'm just going to hide this text, right? So maybe while writing the Java code, you will be able to get all these things that what I'm trying to say over here. So text color, again, what I will just do, I'll just give it as a blue. So let me just give it as a blue. Then text color, let me just give it as a green. And lastly, the text color, I'll just give it as a yellow, something like this. And now every single thing is looking perfectly fine. Let me just save all these changes. Let me just restart the application on my virtual device. Let's see whatever we have done till now, if it is looking perfectly fine or not. And if everything looks fine, then we will go to the Java, and then we will write some logic in order to like run the game. Now if you just see, the application is running on the virtual device, and we are able to see like this particular text. Then we have progress bar, maybe the timer, and then we have couple of buttons over here. Now this particular design that we have just created, and the design that we were expecting, it is looking exactly same. So we can just go ahead with it. Now we are done with the designing our second screen. Now we want, like, now what we want, we whatever buttons, every single thing that we have added, we want these buttons to be a functional. So let's see how we can make these functional. Now in order to make everything dynamic, the one thing that we have to do is, we have to, let me just minimize it, and we have to like go to the project. Then we have to go to this game activity. Now over here, one thing that we have to do is, we have to like add objects for this text view, because we want to assign value to this text view programmatically. And then we have to assign value to this progress bar programmatically, and we want to give all the 4 buttons, like we want to add some methods on these button clicks. So we have to add the objects for this particular text view, progress bar, and then the 4 buttons. So what we can just do, we can just create references. So we have to use private text view, and then we have to use the reference name as txt question, and I'll just assign value null. And inside our on create method, what we have to do, we have to assign value is equals to like find view by id r dot id dot txt question. So if I just go back, and if I just show you, like the id is nothing but txt question, so that id we have to give over here, something like this. Now similar to the text view, the next thing that we have to add is button. So private button btn red, then btn blue, then btn green, and then we have last btn yellow, something like this. I will again assign values to the null. Then we have to like use we have to again assign uh, as of now the initial value will be the null, but we have to find these views and we have to assign the actual views to these particular references. So what we have to do, we have to use btn red is equals to find view by id, then r dot id dot btn red, and similarly we have to assign it for a green, blue, green and yellow. So we have to use blue, then btn blue, then green, and then we have to use btn underscore green, and lastly we have to use btn yellow, and we have to assign btn underscore yellow, something like this. Now make sure for all these references you are assigning the correct values from the view, because if any specific value get missed or maybe gets duplicate, then you might end up with getting some issues and you have to debug a lot. So make sure like you have spent some time and you have like given all those values correctly. The next thing that we want a reference for our progress bar also. So we have to use private progress bar. So we have to use private progress bar, then progress bar is equals to null, and we have to find a reference for progress bar 2. So we have to use progress bar is equals to find view by id r dot id dot progress bar, something like this. Now one thing that we can just do, like we have done with this initialization for all the references that we want text view, then buttons, and we want progress bar. So I think that is enough. We can go ahead. The next thing that we just want is we just want to assign the initial value for this progress bar. So initial value will be the 0, because the timer should start from 0, right? So that is the reason it will be like 0. So we will assign this progress as a 0, something like this. The next thing that I'm just going to do is I'm just going to create one method which will help us to set the questions, right? So what we can just do, we can just create one new method like private, and as of now we can just give a return type as a void, and then the method name will be like set question and options, or maybe we can just keep it as a set questions, something like this. Inside the set questions, what we want a logic so that we can generate uh, this particular text randomly, and also we want to give a text color randomly, right? As you can see in the screenshot, the text is a blue but the text color is a green, right? So that is the reason what we want a logic so that we can generate text randomly and text color also randomly. So in order to do this, what I'm going to do, I'm just first of all going in Android Studio, and over here what we can just do, we can just create one map. So inside the map, inside this hash map, what we will just do, we will just use our color name as a key, and that color like a color value as a value. So color value, when I say color name, it basically means that this is as a color name and this will act as a key inside the map, and this is color value, it will act as a value inside the map. So this is the map of these particular values we have to create. So in order to do this, what I'm going to do, I'm just copy these values and I'm just come back to the Android Studio, and over here what I will just do, first of all at the top I will just I will just paste these values, and what I will just do, I'll just first of all create some static final variables. So what I will just do, I'll just make it as private static final string, and red is equals to, and I'll just give it as red, something like this. Let me just duplicate this line, red value, and let me just copy and paste this particular value, something like this. Now similarly we have to like duplicate blue. So let me just make it as a blue. Then let me just copy the green, something like this. Let me just copy the yellow, and let me just make it as yellow, something like this. For the value, we have to copy this like blue value, and we have to paste it something like this. Make sure you are removing this extra hash, and it will be like blue underscore value. Then for this green, we have to assign value as green underscore value, and we have to give the green value over here. And for yellow, we have to just copy this value, and we have to just paste it, and we have to make it as yellow underscore value, something like this. Now again, make sure whatever values you have assigned, all those values are correct, because any single mistake, we can just like, because we have these small values, right? So you can just take a minute, you can just pause the video, and you can just write all those values in your code. Now once you wrote all these values, the next thing that we have to do is we have to come to this set questions method. Inside the set questions method, we have to first of all create one map. So inside this, let me just create a map, and key will be of type string, value will be of type string, and we can just give the name as color map is equals to new hash map. And then over here, let me just put color map dot put, and we can just put all those values. So first of all, we have to use a red and comma red value. In a similar way, we have to put blue, and we have to give a blue value, something like this. Then we have to put a green, and then we have to put a green value, something like this. And then lastly, we have to put yellow, and then we have to put yellow value, something like this. Now our hash map is ready. The next thing that we can just do, we can just write some logic so that we can get some random colors from this particular map. So what we can just do, we can just create one new method. So we can just make it as private. As of now, I will keep the return type as a void, and then let me just give the name as get random color, something like this. Now again, inside this, what I'm going to do is you can just write any logic to pick a random colors, but the simplest logic that I just found, so I'll just show you what is the logic that I just found. So what we have to do, we have to create a list of strings over here, and let's suppose maybe colors is equals to new array list, or what we can just do, we can just use arrays dot as list, and then we can just add all the colors that we have just used. So we have to like use red comma blue comma green comma yellow. So all these colors that we are using, we have to add it into the list. The next thing that we can just do, we can just use a random class from the Java. So we can just use a random is equals to new random, something like this. This random class will help us to get the random values, but we have some range, right? Because we have like values, we have the size of the colors as a 4, so we want the random value between 0 to 3, right? Because if you just see, like index starts from 0 in the list, so we want a value from 0 to 3, right? So this is the reason that we have to assign random dot let me just find a correct one. So random dot next int, yes, so we have to use random dot next int, and we have to give a value till the 4. So bound will be the 4. So when you will assign value 4, it will basically take value from 0 to 3. It will not include 4, it will take value from 0 to 3. So that is the reason we have to use value 4. And what it will just do, this particular random class will every time it will give random value between 0 to 3. So it will automatically generate random value, but the highest value that it will just generate is 3. So that is the reason we are just using this random class. And then the next thing that we can just do, whatever random value it will just generate, we can just store it inside the variable. Let's suppose int random index, something like this. And whatever random value it will just generate, what we can just do, we can just uh, get it from colors dot get. That index value we can get it something like this, and whatever value we will get, we will just return it as it is. And now if you just see, we are getting the error. The reason is we are now trying to return some value of type string, but we have given a return type as a void, so we have to change it to the string, something like this. So I hope like whatever lines I have added, you got the idea. Initially what we are just doing, we are just creating a list with the containing the color names. Then we are just using some random class which will generate some random index. So it might generate 0th index, first index, and whatever index we will get for that index, for that color, we will just return from this method. So this is the logic, this is how the logic will work. The next thing that we can just do, we can just go inside our set questions method, and what we can just do, we can just use string question is equals to get random color, something like this. So this will help us to generate the random question. So in our case, like if you just see into the screenshot, it will generate, for example, blue, right? Now in similar way, we want to generate some random colors like green color, as you can see, to this particular text. So what we can just do, we can just call the same method in order to like generate the random color. So what we can just do, we can just give question color is equals to get random color, something like this. The next thing that we can just do is we can just check whether the value that that random function have given us, whether those values are present inside our map or not. So how we can just do, we can just use a color map dot contains key, and we can just give the question and color map dot contains key, and we have to give question color. It is just like it is for sure it will be there in the map, but it is just addition condition that we are just adding just to make sure like it is there in the it is present in the map, right? So that is the reason we are just adding this particular condition. Now if this particular question and question color is present in a map, the next thing that we have to do is we have to like use txt question dot set text, and we have to set a question, and txt question dot set text color, we have to give for example question color. So now if you just see, we can't assign the question color directly. The reason is the question color like the question color will be like green, yellow, right? And if you just see, like for example, we have just assigned these particular values as it is, but we have to assign these values, right? Because we have to assign the color codes, right? That is the reason we can't assign it directly. So what we have to do, we have to like use uh, color map dot get, and then we have to use question color, something like this, and then we can just use string question text color is equals to, and then what we can just do, we can just use this particular value over here, something like this. Again we are getting error. The reason is if you just see like set text color implementation, then we have to pass integer value or we have to pass a color state list, right? So that is the reason we can't again like assign our like our these color values, maybe color codes directly. So instead what we have to do, we have to use color dot parse color, and after that we have to pass this particular color code, something like this. Now let me just save these changes, and one thing that we have just missed it, we have to just call this particular method from our on create. So we have to call it something like this, Now we can just do one thing, we can just run the logic as it is. Let's see what happens on the virtual device. This time I'm expecting that it should assign, yes, as you can see, it have assigned a text as a red to the text view, but the color is blue color, right? So it is like generating all these things randomly. So it is looking perfectly fine, and we are like able to attach the color text and maybe the text color randomly perfectly fine. The next thing that we just want is, we just want to work on these particular buttons, so that whenever we will click on these buttons, we have to just make sure that like whatever answer we are going to submit, we have to just like verify that particular answer. So let's see how we can do this. Now in order to work on these particular buttons, one thing that we are going to do is, we are going to add one new method inside our game activity.java. So we will be adding, let's suppose, public. Make sure you are just going to create this method as a public, because we are going to call this method from our activity underscore game.xml file. That is the reason we have to make sure it is public method. I'll just keep the return type as a void, and then the method name will be like submit answer, something like this. Now this submit answer, basically it will take one parameter, so that parameter will be nothing but of type view, something like this. So let me just use view, something like this. The next thing that we just want is, we just want to call this particular method from our activity underscore game.xml. So if I just go to the file, and if I just go to the buttons that we have to use on click over here. So we have to use on click, and then we have to call a submit answer. Now we don't have to pass any parameters, something using this bracket, something like this. We have to just call the submit answer. View parameter, it will bind automatically, like Android Studio itself or Android itself will bind automatically. Now we can just copy this, and we can just paste it for every single button, something like this. Then one thing that we can just do, we can just go back to the game activity.java file, and over here now we are able to, now we will be able to see, like we are uh, calling this method from 4 places, like from our 4 different buttons. The next thing that we just want is, we just want like this particular view to be cast to the button, right? As of now it is, if you just see, it have the generic type as a view, but we want to cast it to the button, so that we can just call some button specific methods. So we can just call btn is equals to, and we can just cast it. So we can just use button, and we can just cast our view, something like this. The next thing that we just want is, we just want to match the button which is clicked. So if I just show you into the atom, so the button, let's suppose at this screenshot, right, if I just click on the very first button, that is a red button, so we want to match like the red button, like the text of this button. So if you just remember, we have written the text on this button which is hidden as of now, because the text button background and button text color is the same. That is the reason it will be hidden, but the text is present on the button. So we want, what we want, whenever we will click on this, we want to get text from this particular button. In my case, if I just click on this red button, the text will be a red, and then we want to match it with the um, text view text. Like if I just see, in my case the screenshot text is like blue, right? So we want to take text from this button, and we want to match it with the text view that we have already added. So this is the logic that we are going to add, right? So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to go to the Android Studio again, and then over here what we can just do, so we can just write basically txt question dot get text. Basically from text view we are getting the text, and we are just matching that text with the button text. So we have to use btn dot get text, something like this, and it will return us the boolean result. So we can just store it inside the boolean value, boolean result, something like this. and then what we can just do, we can just check like if result is equals to true, then it basically means that answer is correct, else wrong answer is given, wrong answer, exit the game or over the game, something like that. So if the result is true, then basically means that answer is correct, and if the result is false, then it basically means that we are we are ended up with a wrong answer and we are going to exit the game, right? Now the one thing that we have to do is, if result is correct, the next thing that we have to do, we have to generate a new question, right? So in order to generate a new question, we can just call this set question method again, something like this. And now let me just save these changes. So let me just first of all try to run this application. Let's see how it will behave on our virtual device. So the application is now running, and if I just see, like, the very first option that we are getting is green, so we have to click on the green. If I just click on the green, we are getting the blue, so let me just click on blue, again green, again red. So yes, now if you just submit the right answer, then it is basically like generating the new question, and it is basically like giving the expected output, right? But if at all we give a wrong answer, then we have to exit a game and we have to show the score that we have generated. So in order to do this, what we can just do, we can just add a new activity, and inside of the new activity we can just add one design so that we can show the score. So if I just show you the design that we are going to implement to show the score, so this is how the score will look like. We will be having this like your score is, and we will show the score, and then there will be a button also, so that if at all we click on this particular button, the game will start again. So this is the logic that we are going to implement. So let's see how to write a logic in order to uh, give a score. So for this, what we have to do, we have to go back to the Android Studio, and then over here the very first thing that I will just do is I will just create one new variable of type integer, so that we can store um, this score. So what I will just do, I will just use private integer, and variable name will be the score, and I will just assign value as a 0, something like this. Now let me just come back to the submit answer, and over here what we can just do, if the result is true, if the answer is correct, what we can just do, we can just use I plus equals to 10, something like this. So what we can just do, we can just like assign increase the value of I by the 10. So over here let me just correct this. I just did one small mistake, so maybe over here it is saying that cannot resolve a symbol. So if I just go above, okay, not a I, it is a score basically. So what we have to do, like we have to use score, something like this. So we have to give a value to the score. Now once our score is incremented, the next thing that we have to do is we have to generate a new activity, so that we can just design it to show the score. So if I just go to the project, and then if I just right click on this particular package, new, and then activity, and then we have to use empty activity. This will be like score activity, something like this, and we have to generate a layout file. Layout name will be like this is not going to be a launcher activity, so we have to uncheck this, and we have to keep it as it is. Source language will be the Java, and let me just click on finish. Again we have to wait a couple of seconds in order to like finish Gradle build. Now once the build is done, the next thing that we can just do, we can just go to the res layout, and we can just go to this activity underscore score.xml file. Now inside this activity underscore score.xml file, what we have to do, we have to write a logic, so that we can just show the score. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add again a linear layout. So let me just add linear layout, and again it will be a vertical. So let me just drag drop inside my constraint layout. Again we have to use all these values like top, bottom, start and end. All these constraints and all these values should be the 0, right? As you can see, the next thing that we just want is we just want one text view, basically two text view we just want, and we just want one button also. So what we can just do, we can just maybe come to the split, and maybe we can just add the text view from over here. So we can just use text view. Width will be a match parent, height will be a wrap content, then the text will be, let's suppose text will be like uh, your score is, and yes, we can just keep it as it is. Again, what we have to do, we have to move this your score is text to the strings files, but in a moment we will just do it. We can just copy this text view and we can just paste it, and maybe over here we can just assign value, let's suppose 50, something like this. Now this is how it will look like. One more thing that we can just do, we can just use alignment. So we can just use alignment center, similar alignment for a score also, like 50 also. So we can just give something like this. The next thing that we just want is we just want some text color, not a text color, text size. So we can just use text size, and let's suppose 50 sp. Yes, I think it looks fine. Maybe we can just use text style also, bold. Yes, something like this, and similar styles and size we can go ahead and we can just assign it to the like score also, something like this. Now it is looking perfectly fine. One thing that we have just left back is we have to assign a gravity at the center. So what we can just do, we can just use gravity center, something like this. One more thing that we just want is we just want one button, so that we can like start the game again. So for this we have to use button, and width will be, let's suppose match parent, and height will be a wrap content, something like this. Text on the button will be like start again, something like this. And again, the one thing that we can just do, we can just assign some padding to the linear layout. So we can just assign the padding of 10 dp. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. Now this is the screen which will be the third screen. If I just show you at the design, yes, now if you just see like every single thing that we have seen in this particular image, we are able to exactly replicate the same screen inside our Android Studio. Now one thing that we have to do is we have to write some logic in order to make this start again button functionable. So let's see how to do this. Now in order to make our third screens functionable, what we have to do, we have to come back to the game activity, and over here what I will just do, I will create one method. Let's suppose private, uh, return type will be the void as of now, and then the method name will be, let's suppose exit, something like this. Now inside this method what we have to do, we have to call intent. So we have to use intent is equals to new intent, and over here what we have to do, we have to give the context. So we have to use this comma, and we have to use destination context as score activity dot class, something like this. And then what we have to do is we have to pass value of score from our game activity to the score activity, right? Because we want to show a score also at the score activity, because as of now if you just see this value 50 we have hard coded, but we want to show it dynamically, right? So that is the reason what we have to do, we have to use intent dot, over here we have to use put extra, and we have to give key as score, and comma, we have to use string dot value of and then whatever score that we have to put it as it is, something like this. So over here what we are doing, like if you just see, the type of the score is integer, we want to pass it as a string, so that is the reason we are just converting this value to the string, and just we are just putting it inside the intent. And after that what we have to do, we have to like use this dot start activity, and then we have to call intent, something like this. And now let me just save these changes, and one thing that we can just do, we can just call this exit method from our else condition, because if at all we gave any wrong answer, we should be able to redirect to the new intent. So now let me just run the application on the virtual device. Let's see what happens. Now this time the answer, let me just give the wrong answer, let's see what happens. Now if you just see, we are able to redirect to the third screen or score screen. Now over here whatever value that we have given, which is 50, this should be dynamic value, right? Because we want to give exact score to the user. So that is the reason what we have to do, we have to like assign these values dynamically. So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to go to the activity underscore score, and over here one thing that I just left back, so I'll just do it quickly. So I'll just copy this particular text, and I'll just go to the strings.xml file, and over here I'll just give as, let's suppose, score underscore note, and then let me just paste this value over here, and let me just go back to the activity underscore xml. In here, instead of hard coding the value, what I will just do, I'll just make it as, let's suppose, @strings, and over here let me just give it as your score, or maybe score note, something like this. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. Now let me just go to the score activity.java, and over here one more thing I just left back, I just want to assign a id to the text view. So let me just assign id something like txt underscore score, something like this. Now if I just come back to the score activity.java, over here we have to use references. So reference of type text view, txt score is equals to null. Then inside on create, what we have to do, we have to use txt score is equals to find view by id r dot id dot, we have to assign text score, something like this. And what we have to do next, we have to like whatever value that we are sending over here. So if you just see, we are sending this particular value score, so we have to get this particular value inside our score activity, right? So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to like use intent is equals to, we have to just call get intent method. From this intent, what we have to do, we have to use get string extra, and then over here we have to give a key. So the key is score. If I just go to the game activity, if you just see, like the key is score, so we have to give exact same key over here, as you can see inside this as you can see over here. Now what we can just do, we can just store it inside one string variable, let's suppose a string score, something like this. The next thing that we just want is we just want to assign text score dot set text score, something like this. Now what we can just do, we can just run the application. Let's see what happens, whether we are able to get the score dynamically or not. So now the application is running, and over here if you just see, we are getting the blue color. So if I just click on blue, then red, and then blue, so we have given 3 correct answers. Let me just click on wrong answer, and if you just see, like we are getting the 30 as a score, which is perfectly fine. The next thing that we just want, whenever we will click on the start again button, I just want to go back to the game. So I just want to restart the game. So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to go to the activity underscore game, and for this button let me just add one id, and let's suppose btn start again, something like this. If I just come back to the score activity.java, over here what we have to do, we have to use private button btn start again is equals to null, something like this. Then what we have to do, we have to like find a reference, so we have to use button start again is equals to find view by id r dot id dot btn start again, something like this. Now after these after adding the references, what we have to do, we have to like add on click listener. So how we can just do, we have to just use button start again dot set on click listener new on click listener, something like this. Inside this on click method, what we have to do, we have to just use intent maybe I is equals to new intent, and then what we can just do, we can just use view dot get context, and we can just give our destination as game activity dot class. And what we have to do next, we have to just start the activity, so we have to just call start activity, and then we have to just give intent as a parameter, something like this. So one thing that I just left back, we have to just call it as a view dot get context dot start activity, something like this. And now let me just save these changes, and let me just restart the application, and let's see whether we are able to start the application, and whether we are able to like play the game again or not. Now if I just show you, like we are getting red, so let me just click on the red, then blue, then red again, and this time let me just give the wrong answer. My score is 40. If I just click on start again, we are able to redirect to the game again. Now this time again let me just play, let me just give 1 2 and maybe like yes. Now if I just show you, like we are getting the uh, like 30 as a score, so it is working as expected. Like we are able to redirect to the expected screens at the correct point of time. The only thing that we have left back is we have to give the timer. So we have to give a 5 seconds, so that user can click on any button in the 5 seconds. If at all user fails to click on any button or submit the answer within the 5 seconds, we will like end the game, and we will just show the score again back to the user. So let's see how to do this. Now in order to create this particular timer, what we have to do, we have to go to the game activity, and over here I'm just going to create a new method that is called as a timer. So private void and set timer, something like this. Inside this timer, what we are going to do, we are going to again use a handler. So basically we are going to use a threads, and we are going to use post delayed method, so that we can just like call this particular method every single second. So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to like go at the top, and over here we have to create private, and maybe we can just make it as a final, and then we have to make handler is equals to new handler, something like this. Now again we have to come back to our set timer method. Inside the set timer method, basically I will write some logic, and maybe you can just follow that logic. And if at all I like feel I need to explain something, I'll just explain that logic in a moment. So over here, the very first thing that we have to do is we have to just use handler dot post delayed method. And again, as we have already used this post delayed method, it basically takes a new runnable. So we have to pass a new runnable. Inside this run method, what we have to do, we have to like assign value to the progress bar. So how we can assign the value to the progress bar, because like with the help of like some logic. So how we can just do is, we can just first of all create one variable of type final of type int, and maybe let's suppose delay, and that delay will be 1000. So 1000 is nothing but a 1000 millisecond, and that delay we can just assign to our post delayed method, something like this. The next thing that we just want is we just want to calculate a progress every single second. So for every single second, basically it means that we will be progressing 20%, right? So we are going to like assign 5 seconds of timer. So if you just divide 100 progress divide by 5, it basically comes 20. So for every single second we want to increase value of progress bar by the 20. So that is the reason we have to like give it as let me just show you how we can calculate it. We can just give a value, let's suppose int counter is equals to, so let's suppose value will be starting from a 1, right, something like this. The next thing that we can just do, we can just come inside our run, and what we can just do, we can just calculate progress int progress is equals to counter into 20, something like this. And whatever progress that we will get, we will just assign this progress to the progress bar. So we have already created reference for progress bar, so we can just copy it and we can just paste it. Progress dot set progress is equals to progress bar dot set progress is equals to progress, something like this. Now the next thing that we just have to make sure is if progress is equals to 100%, then we have to exit. So if progress is equals to 100, then we have to exit, something like this. And lastly, what we have to do, we have to just use counter plus plus, something like this. And now over here, if you just see, we are getting one issue. The issue is related, like if I just hover on this, so it is what it is saying, like variable counter is accessed from within inner class needs to be a final or effectively final, right? So it is basically asking like counter variable should be final or effectively final. So what we can just do, we can just hover on it and we can just click on the suggestion like transform counter into the final one element array. So in this way we can just assign the value. We can just keep it as it is, like Android Studio will handle itself all these things. So if you just see, like it have already created one array, the array have only one value called as a 1, and that value, like that value with the help of index over here we are just accessing. Now after the plus plus, the one thing that we have to do is we have to start this handler again. So what we have to do, like we have to use handler dot post delayed this comma, we have to pass delay again, something like this. Now let me just save all these changes, and what we can just do, we can just copy this particular set timer method inside our, let's suppose, yes, inside our set questions method. Now let me just save all these changes. Let me just restart the application. Let's see whether we are able to see some timer on the screen or not. Now if you just see, we are able to see the timer and it is running perfectly fine. And if at all we fail to submit the answer within the 5 seconds, it is just taking us to the score screen, right? One thing that we have just left back is, and it is really very important thing, is to like start the new threads again. So whenever we will come inside this set timer method, one thing that we have to do is we have to like use progress bar dot set progress. We have to like start it with 0, and after that we have to like use handler dot, and we have to call remove callbacks and messages, and we have to pass null. So we have to like flush all the existing threads so that we should not get any issues with the like threads, or maybe any issues with the progress bar timers. So that is the reason we have to call this particular method. One more thing that we have to do is we have to copy this and we have to come to the exit method, and before exiting also we have to kill all the threads. That is the reason we have to paste it over here. something like this. Now again, let me just restart the application. Let's see whether we are able to get the expected output on the screen or not. So if I just um, submit some answers, yes, we are able to get it. And now if I just fail to submit it, we are getting redirected to the score page and we are able to see the score. Again, like we can just give all these our existing validations, we can just verify they are working as expected. So for timer validation, if at all we fail to give the answer in a 5 second, it is taking us to the score page. And also if at all we give a wrong answer, then also it is taking us to the score page. So all the validations are working perfectly fine, and we are able to develop our game as expected, and it is working as expected. Now we are almost done with developing this particular game. Only small thing that we have left back, those basically are not related to the game exactly, but they are kind of cosmetic changes. For example, if you just see on top, the color of this particular bar is kind of purple color. If you just want to change this color, then we can just change it. The next thing, if I just rotate this device, then as of now you are able to see it. But if you just see, our game is not looking quite good, so I just want to disable this rotation also. The next thing is, if I just show you, if you just see the logo of this particular apk file or this application, it is like the default Android logo. So I just want to change this particular logo also. And yeah, so these are the few cosmetic things that we have to do. So let's see how we can do those cosmetic changes. Now in order to do these cosmetic changes, what we have to do, we have to go to the file. So if I just take you to the res, then values, then themes, over here we have to go to this themes.xml file. So in order to change the status bar color, so I have just shown you the bar color that we have to change. So if I just try to show you, as of now, the top color that we just wanted to change, right? So if you just want to change the color, you have to come to this particular property, status bar color, and then you have to assign this particular color over here. So I just want to assign a black, so that's why I will just assign black. Similar thing that we have to do with themes.xml night version. So we have to use @color, and we have to I just want to assign black. If you just want to assign any different color, then you can just assign that particular different color. Then let me just quickly run this application on the device. Let's see. Now if you just see, the bar color or status bar color is changed to the black. The next thing that I just want is, I just want to disable the rotation. So what we have to do, in order to do this, we have to go to the manifest, Android manifest file, and over here for this activity, for this score activity, we have to use orientation, screen orientation, and we have to use portrait. Similar thing we have to do with the game activity, and similar thing we have to do with the splash activity, something like this. Let me just save these changes now, and let me just restart the application again. Let's see whether we are able to get the expected output or not. Now if you just see, if I just rotate the screen, still our application is not rotating, it is still in a portrait mode. So it is working as expected and it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that I just want to do is, I just want to assign the image for this particular application. So if you just see, current image is default Android image, so I just want to change it to the logo of our application. So in order to do this, what we have to do, we have to come to the project, and then we have to come to this MIP map. And over here, what I will just do, I'll just delete these MIP maps that are there. So I'll just delete it, and as of now we will get some errors, but that's fine. We are just going to remove those errors in a moment. So in order to generate the new logos or images, right click on MIP map, new, and then image asset, and over here we have to select image, and then we have to select path of the image. So what I will just do, I'll just go to my drawables and logo.png. I'll just right click and I'll just copy the path, and I'll just copy the absolute path, and I'll just come back to the map, new, and image asset, and I'll just give this particular path. As you can see, now we are able to see the different variants on the right hand side section, and we have to just click on next, and then we have to just like click on finish. And over here, if you just see, all these files are created. Now if you just want to verify, you can just restart the application, and we are able to see like whenever we will restart the application, we are able to see the logo, and then we are able to see this particular game also. And now if you just see, we are able to see this game logo at the top. And also if I just come to the home, then the APK logo or the application logo, something similar to the Google Chrome, we are able to see our game logo also, right? So it is looking perfectly fine, and every single thing that we have just decided while um, starting with this application, like we have created the game, we have created this small game, and then we have created these cosmetic changes also, like we have created this status bar color, then we have changed the application logo. Alongside, we have disabled the landscape mode also for this particular game. So this is how you can create one small Android game. If you just want to practice it, you can just practice it. You can learn lot many things from this application. If you still have any questions, let me know in the comment section, and I will try my best to help out in that case. I hope you enjoyed this session. I'll see you in the next session.